Okay, it's afternoon, February 4th. Happy Valentine's Day. 14th. 4th. That's why I never get my wife anything. I don't know what day it is. If you want to hear some good stories about Valentine's Day, talk to Abe. He has a moment of reflection. He chose not to make it about Valentine's Day because of what he found.
Participants.
Oh, you better remember that one.
Sound.
Speaking of birthdays, I have a card that Abe brought in for Joe Von Elb. It's his 89th birthday. So I'm going to pass this around, sign it, wish Joe happy birthday and a healthy future.
Okay, what did we say? Chat. You can see. Okay. Type your message.
Okay, I'll do the count afterwards because we're growing on Zoom. Welcome everybody on Zoom. We have about 20 members here. Please stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Flags in the back again, still. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with justice for all.
We will proceed with the program, and Jim, as soon as he finishes, no, okay. He has the introduction of our speaker today. We're down to one, which is perfectly fine.
She does double duty now. Good morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Cameron Swallow is the co-director for the Braver Angels in the state of Wisconsin. And I have to say, I never heard of them until I read about them on the internet. So it'll be an interesting topic. I wish them luck. Cameron is a veteran secondary school teacher from Tennessee. She moved to Kenosha, Wisconsin in 2017 when her husband became president of Carthage College. And incidentally, she drove down from Kenosha today just to speak to us. Yeah. She now teaches middle schoolers in an after-school program, serves on several local volunteer boards, and plays with the bluegrass band Flat Creek Highway. And if you could hear the music that was being played, that was her band. So, and she has been moderating Braver Angels workshops since 2018. And if all the above is not enough, she is currently working with the Music and Arts Committee for the national organization. Please welcome Cameron Swallow.
Thanks, y'all. It is good to be here. Is this mic working?
It's really touchy. I don't know why. Test. You got to get real close.
Okay.
There we go.
I'll just pretend it's a rock concert instead of a bluegrass concert. Braver Angels is a nonprofit, grassroots and nationwide, dedicated to depolarizing the national conversation, or if you prefer blunter language, convincing reds and blues to hate each other less. This first slide starts with a quotation from Abraham Lincoln. "I do not like that man, I must get to know him better." We have been talking a good bit about Abraham Lincoln as people's fears and anxieties about our current level of depolarization grow. I remember hearing sort of eye-rolling, tossed off comments about, in the style of hyperbole about a looming civil war in our time. I no longer see the tossed off attitude and the rolling of the eyes and the idea that that is a impossible exaggeration. Nobody wants No one wants to speak about it seriously, but no one is completely dismissing that logical conclusion to some of the pathways that we are traveling. So if you're like me, you would like to figure out what we can do to get off that path and reclaim a healthier path for our nation that makes our country less divided. Right now, I'd like to take a closer look at the personal cost of political polarization, because it's not just hurting the other side when we talk smack in our own silos about all those crazy people out there that don't agree with us. It's hurting everyone in our national fabric as a whole. Over the last few decades, our affect, that's our emotions and our attitudes toward our own party, our own clubhouse, has stayed relatively even, or maybe even gotten better. But our views about the other party, according to a 2019 study in the Annual Review of Political Science, we trust them, they're political scientists, they know data. Our views of the other party have gotten much, much worse. Like animosity, contempt, and distrust, you name it. All the ugly names you could think of to throw, we throw them at those mostly anonymous crazy people on the outside of our clubhouse, because our clubhouses have become more and more and more segregated by the patterns of our national life. We don't see the people that we don't agree with socially anymore. I'm here as a guest of a Kiwanis club, one of those groups, and I've heard people, and I've heard people talking just today about the age of this group, the aging process of this group, the difficulty of recruiting new and younger members. I know that this is a symptom of exactly what I'm talking about. The idea that there's nowhere.
Just try to turn it off and on. It's not the batteries either. No, it is. Okay, I'm gonna have to find some batteries.
Okay.
You're gonna have to try, yeah, now it is the batteries.
I am a school teacher. Can you hear me?
Use your school voice. Oh, you're there. I'll work on this.
Young people, listen up. The symptom that you've reflected in the difficulty of recruiting new people to Kiwanis Club is a symptom of what I'm describing, that our society is not encouraging those crossroads that it used to encourage. And Braver Angels is trying to step into that breach and encourage conversation across a political divide that never gets crossed in our increasingly self-segregated society. So it's not just about the issues that people are divided. As we continue to self-segregate, it's about how we regard our fellow Americans who differ from us. Those people are other, alien to us, strangers, incomprehensible. And then it gets worse. The more we talk about that, the more they become monsters, the more they become dehumanized, the more they become only two possibilities in our understanding. The only reason for all those people out there to disagree with us in here is that they're stupid or that they are evil. And if there's no other reason than being stupid or evil for somebody to disagree with you about any policy, then it's not an illogical conclusion for people to be talking about eventual civil war. And I'm not here to inflame passions, and I'm not here to sound an alarm for panic. I'm just saying we need to get interested in the depolarization project, because if we're thinking of half the country as irredeemable monsters, then we're not going to try to work with them to solve any of the major problems facing our age. Now, the major problems facing our age, you may have something dear to your heart, and he may have something dear to his heart, and he may have something else dear to his heart. But guess what? We're never going to get to work on any of those dear projects until we get this roadblock of polarization out of the middle of our pathway. So if we want to have constructive work on common ground in our society, we've got to get polarization handled first. And that's what Braver Angels was created to do in 2016. No, we should go to the next one. Yes. But why is mine not changing? There it is. No. There. Affective polarization. That's this, not just differing on the issues, but differing on our contempt for the other side, how they're not just people with bad ideas, they're bad people, right? That idea, that affective polarization, is particularly dangerous because, as we've seen, many people become willing to do anything to defeat the other party. The ends justify the means, right? It's worth anything. We also tend to become unwilling to admit to any faults on our own side. We see our side as incredibly diverse, but the other side as all the same. Oh, you're behind me. See? Unwilling to admit any fault. There's where we are. And I'll give you a better cue. Okay. To get a sense of how polarized we really are, one telling measure is who we're willing to welcome into our family. And that's our, sons and daughters getting married kinds of things. In 1960, 4% of Republicans and Democrats thought they'd be pretty unhappy if their child married a member of the other party. Their dissatisfaction about marrying across racial lines was much higher. Their dissatisfaction about marrying across religious lines was much higher. And today, what's the highest one? It's marrying across the political divide. We treat people that we disagree with as if they're worth less than us, and that certainly means they're not worthy of joining our family. What am I doing wrong with my advance? There it is. Okay. But the good news is some of these same data gatherers have found that not only are we reaching higher levels of polarization, we also have more in common than we think we do. And every time anybody goes to a Braver Angels workshop that we moderate, they come away from it saying, oh, we're not as far apart as we've been led to believe we are. And they come out talking about their common humanity and pledging to keep those lines of communication open across the party line. That's where Braver Angels comes in. Here's a review of our mission, which I summarized at the beginning. You can see it on a card too. Braver Angels brings Americans together to bridge the partisan divide and strengthen our democratic republic. As individuals, that means we try to understand the other side's point of view, even if we don't agree with it. And in communities, we engage those we disagree with. That's something I think would resonate with the Kiwanis Club, right? We engage people. We don't go hide in our own silo. We're looking for common ground and ways to work together. Some people say that potholes aren't partisan. And if you've got a project to get done, something practical, then you can work with almost anyone. Am I saying that nobody's a monster? Well, I wish I could say that. I'm sure there are a few monsters in our midst. There always have been. But the vast majority of people on both sides are human beings, not monsters, and we can work with them. Third thing, in politics, we support principles that bring us together rather than divide us. That means not looking for the defeat of the other party at all costs. That means looking for places that you can find common ground, find bipartisan agreement, find some way to move forward for the benefit of the whole country, country above party. The Braver Angels have a rule of balance. At every level of organizational guidance, red and blue leaders are equally represented. That means he introduced me as the co-director of the state of Wisconsin. I'm sorry that my colleague Susan Bergeron is ill today and was not able to be here with me, but we are the red and blue co-chairs of Wisconsin. And we have a discussion-based alliance in Madison, and they have a red and a blue leader of that alliance. And at the national level, there's a red and a blue head of Braver Angels. Anytime they set up a level of leadership, that level of leadership is balanced. Is this difficult? Yes, because on the table, on the face of it, as you might be suspecting, the idea on its face is more attractive to blues than reds. Maybe it's because there's a lot of sitting around and talking, and reds think that that's not action-oriented enough and they're suspicious of it. Maybe it's because reds think that that it's going to be all kumbaya and let's just all pretend that we're the same and not focus on our differences, or that they'll be bashed once they get into the room. It's a trap that's been laid. I'm not sure what the imbalance is, but almost everywhere that Braver Angels is well established, there's more blue engagement than red engagement. And we are looking to civic groups like Kiwanis and Rotary and other things in your sphere, because you've got a long history of working across that partisan divide, getting the practical things done with reds and blues together. And if we can embed the Braver Angels principles into your existing networks, then it will be a natural source to redden the Braver Angels field, which is something that it needs. We won't be showing this video, but it's on the Braver Angels website if you would like to see it. It's the history and origin of the nonprofit from 2016. What do we do? The key to depolarization for Braver Angels is bringing people together. And man, has that been hard to do over the past 2 years. But the silver lining of that is that we have found a way to be a community over Zoom, and that's allowed for people to go to workshops, even if they're 2 hours drive from any place that's offering a live workshop. I can go to a workshop in Oregon, the state. Well, I had a little confusion at my table about someone who'd recently moved to Oregon, and had to realize that it was not really that far away. But I could Zoom to Oregon for a Braver Angels workshop that suits my schedule and not have to drive on icy roads in the North Woods of Wisconsin if that's where I live. Okay. We have these alliances that sponsor activities like book discussions. We have film reviews, we have issue discussions. Some of these take place in a national format on Zoom, and some of them are beginning to revive, taking place in person. The red-blue workshops and the common ground workshops encourage conversation over the line. that you have the same number of reds and blues invited, okay? There's another kind of workshop, and that is skills training workshops. And for that, you don't have to be so careful about your balance. You can have an 80% blue group and 20% red group, and you don't have to worry about it being 50-50. Okay. And you're training for future conversations to be easier and more productive and less defensive and hostile. Okay. So there are these 4 training workshops. And then there are other programs, not workshops, but one-to-one conversations, which you can do right now by downloading a script off the internet and finding a partner that's of the other color alignment from you and having the 1-hour script. It's not a script with your lines on it, but it's a script with now put 4 minutes on the timer, talk about this. Now put 4 minutes on the timer, the other person talks about this, etc. And then there's a second script for you to schedule a second one-to-one conversation follow-up with that same person at a later time. That's a one-to-one conversations exercise. There are debates, which are not like presidential debates or like high school competition debates, where your goal is to bash people, where your goal is to score as many rhetorical points as possible. No, this is a debate that's called Seeking Truth, Not Victory. That's the tagline, Seeking Truth, Not Victory. And every speaker, even though they're alternating, for and against the resolution, everyone is speaking only exactly what they believe. They're speaking about what their doubts are as well as their convictions. And everybody gets to ask questions, but they're not pointed gotcha questions, because they go through a third party who's the debate chair, who takes the sting out of a personal confrontation from a questioner and a speaker. That's the Braver Angels debate. We've had several of those on the Carthage College campus, and it works really well with a college student population. And then there are also book discussions, movie discussions, red-blue pairs, local alliances, and even songwriting contests. And we have a video from the songwriting contest that I will have. Ooh, is it Rick? No, what's your name? Okay, Rich, play for y'all in a minute. Okay. What are the results? I mean, that all feels good, right? You're going to work on depolarizing, but can you measure it? Does it do good? Well, the answer is yes. Braver Angels events do reduce affective polarization, that sense of hating and disdaining the other side. We're finding these events help people on both sides of the red-blue divide decrease their stereotyped thinking about the other side and lead to seeing others as individuals, not faceless, two-dimensional people who for some reason are standing in the way of getting good things done. Right? They don't have to be stupid or evil to disagree with you. In general, 70 to 80% of our participants say that they leave our workshops with better understanding and increased feelings of warmth. And for me, I'll add, that is a decrease in the level of despair about the future, right? You can start to imagine a brighter future if you think there are increased feelings of warmth that are possible. And it's not just our own interior studies that show that these efforts are working. A 2021 study across 7 different universities shows that Braver Angels workshops have had an impact on depolarization. Here's something important. And this is so important, we made a bumper sticker. We're not trying to change people's ideas about the issues. We're not trying to make every solution a purple-centric solution. We are trying to change our minds about each other. Next slide. Okay. The reds stay red, the blues stay blue. We're not trying to make a purple paint pot. We are trying to change how the Reds and Blues think about each other and talk about each other. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to look for more collaborative solutions. Because when we're really ready to turn down the rancor and quit yelling about the stupid people and the evil people on the other side, we begin to see some possibilities for collaborative solutions. And we take a deeper dive to discover there might be valuable information from a perspective that we have not allowed ourselves to hear. This picture, this man is named Greg, and he is an evangelical conservative Christian in Virginia. And he met Kuyar at the second Braver Angels weekend back in 2016. Kuyar is a Muslim man, and they were partnered for red-blue discussions, and they decided to visit each other's homes and places of worship. And this is Greg visiting Kuyar at his mosque. And do they agree with each other about where the country needs to go? No. Do they vote for the same people? No. But have they continued to be friends? And do they find that friendship to be powerful and encouraging about the possibilities of the future? Absolutely. I've met both of them, and they do continue to be friends and continue to do depolarization work for the rest of the country together. Imagine, what could it be like if everybody, you know, us, the enlightened ones, and all those other crazy people out there, if everybody could approach solving our nation's challenges in this way? So here's the future vision of Braver Angels. We're working on telling the American story. We've got a whole media department working, a podcast, public forum, a We the People's Forum, the Braver Angels music team, which is where I'm working, and we're going to hear a song from in a little while. People writing op-eds, people writing articles in other publications linking to Braver Angels. We're scaling at the grassroots. We're making new alliances. I'm very pleased to say that our newest alliance in Wisconsin just happened last week. We got registered with the Braver Angels of the North Woods, and they're going to be inviting the UP and parts of Upper Minnesota to join them because they share so many geographic conditions and cultural conditions. We're going to have strategic partnerships. I'm looking, as I said, for organizations and institutions that have a statewide reach in Wisconsin so that Braver Angels can sort of ride the circuitry of that statewide reach. And I don't have to make my own connection in Eau Claire or La Crosse. You know, if I'm in with Kiwanis, you know, there are natural connections in all these cities. If I'm in with Rotary, same thing. League of Women Voters, same thing, right? Anything that's working statewide, I want to be part of it. And the most exciting new initiative is called Braver Politics, and it is starting right now in 2022. And it is outreach to our elected officials, getting them to participate in common ground seeking and not being ashamed to be seen with someone from the other political party. And we're not focusing so much on the 538 in Washington. We're focusing on the county electeds, the school board electeds, the city alderman groups, okay? That's where Braver Politics is going in 2022. And we're also going to have our own national convention, which we haven't gotten to have since 2019. But I'm looking forward to meeting with my Braver Angels leaders across the nation again I'm hoping that it's going to be in Seattle by September, but they haven't made that official yet. You can help. And if you would like to remind yourself to help later when you're back on Wi-Fi, you can send yourself a little text and it will open up a website for you to link to later on. Text yourself the message BA, and it can be lowercase too. If you text a 2-letter message to that number, then it'll send you the website to click when you are at leisure. And you can support Braver Angels for as little as $12 a year. That's what a yearly membership costs. It's $1 a month. It's purely nominal, but we want it to be accessible. And is there a way to give more money? Yes, certainly. Certainly there is. And I'm done. Questions? Yes, sir.
If your co-leader were here with you today, would she be wearing a blue dress?
The question was, if my co-leader were here, would she be wearing blue like I'm wearing red? I'm wearing red for Carthage College, sir. And because I'm saying happy Valentine's Day to all you fine people. Yes, sir.
I may have missed it, but what year is your organization, was it started?
The first Braver Angels retreat was December of 2016. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you mentioned that after people go through the workshops, they have a 70 to 80%, what should I say, better respect for the other side. And I'm assuming this is right after they've had the workshop. Do you ever do any 3-month or 6-month follow-ups to find out if their positions have remained the same or changed?
I believe that there are some longitudinal studies underway. I don't know any of that data here in my head. And I do need to clarify that 70 to 80% is not how much better they feel. It's how many of them feel better.
Or how many of them?
70 to 80% of the people who respond report feeling better about the future, about the other side, about depolarization.
Okay, but you can still do a 3 or 6 months.
Yes, we would like to. Yes. Yes, sir.
What is the North Woods?
Well, I guess the question is, what is the Northwoods? Who would ask a Tennessean a question like that? That's what they call themselves. They live, they all live in Superior and something that starts with an R, Rhinelander. And so they're all way up north in Wisconsin. Yes, sir.
Coming from up north. Those north of US Highway 8 would probably qualify as Northwood.
Well, he says I should make sure that they live north of US Highway 8 before I admit them into this alliance. I will work on checking that. I don't know who the gatekeeper is going to be, however. Yes, sir.
1959, when I was in high school, we were talking in the class and somebody got up and said, I hear about this. Everybody says they're going up north. They're going up north. Just exactly where is this up north, Ken? I said, north is, it happens to be anywhere north of where you currently are.
He says north is anywhere north of where you currently are. Yes, sir.
Couple of questions. How many people have participated in the groups? You have a sense of how many people nationwide?
I should know this. This is an embarrassing question for me. I'm so sorry. I'm afraid to give you an estimate. I could do a quick Google and follow up with you.
Are all states involved?
Yes, there are all 50 states, and it has been 4 years, and the participation has grown. And once we got to the run up to the 2020 election, the participation more than doubled. So it spreads nationwide, and it is on an exponential growth curve, but I'm afraid to put a number to it without looking it up. Yes, sir.
Okay, the other question I have was, what population tend to come to the groups? I mean, like, are they business people or politicians?
Good question. Braver Angels, like many nonprofits, struggles with being what they call too blue, too white, too gray, and too wealthy. All four of those things are skewed. And so they work to find host locations that are red friendly, to build that trust in. They work to get embedded in the curricula and extracurricular activities of college campuses to work against the age skew. And they have that new offering about depolarizing conversation about race. They're hoping to bridge some race gaps as well. So they're working against all the skews. Yes, sir.
In our past, red and blue tended to work together when there was a common enemy. What would you say the common enemy is today to achieve the same end?
The question is, red and blue used to work together against common enemies, and that's often the prescription for any warring tribes, right? If you've got two groups in middle school squabbling, try to get them to see that they're on the same side of a larger issue, and then you can make friends out of enemies. If COVID-19 did not succeed in doing that, I don't know.
How about climate change?
That was already, he said, how about climate change? And that was already a divisive topic that people were choosing to see differently. Short of Martian invasion, I am not sure that we can come up with a common enemy. Yes, sir.
What was the motivation that caused you to name your organization Braver Angels?
That's a good question. Okay, so if y'all have time, what kind of time do I have?
About 3 minutes.
Okay.
Say 5.
Okay, so we started with Abraham Lincoln, right? Another favorite Lincoln quotation is that the mystic chords of memory will surely swell again when we listen to the better angels of our nature. The original name for the organization was Better Angels, and they ran into copyright issues with the platinum level donor circle of the Ken Burns documentaries. They're the Better Angels Society. And so we said, well, as we move toward the 2020 election, we need an extra dose of courage anyway, so we will be Braver Angels. Yes, sir.
The question I have is, are the two talking political parties in this case, as we sort of talked about, are they further apart than they were before?
Before 2016?
Yeah, I mean more recently as compared to, let's take any time in the past, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever.
I think he says, are the two political parties further apart than they used to be? And I think you could make, my natural answer is yes. By perception, I believe yes. But I think you could make a rational argument that they're not really as far apart on issues and how to handle a threat, but we are further apart than we've been in 150 years in how we see each other. That's where the huge gap, the rift has opened more than in policies. Yes, sir, in the back.
A comment. First of all, I really applaud what you're doing. But this comment maybe gets to John's issue. brother-in-law is Tony Earl, who was the Democratic governor of Wisconsin at one time. He started his career as a legislator up in Wausau, central part of the state. Walter John Chilson was the head of the Republican caucus at that time. They used to ride down to Madison together. Now, this is 30, 40 years ago, and visit. And of course, Tommy Thompson was in the legislature, who was a Republican governor here a number of times. And those guys, they got along great. Every time I meet with Tony, he talks about that. They're so depressed that even though they might have had different political philosophies, personally, they were kind of friends. And they go after the session, they go over to the Inn on the Park and slug down whiskeys, you know. So that's really what's changed. It seems to be a lack of general good naturedness and friendliness apart from the political issues.
Yes, I so wish the story from this commenter was about a relative in the legislature who remembers days when people were congenial across the aisle, you know, fight about the policy on the floor and then go and have whiskey together afterwards. I so wish that my colleague Susan Bergeron were here for this part of the discussion, because she too was in the assembly at that time. She spent 10 years as an elected representative in Wisconsin as a Republican, and has memories of exactly what you're describing, and knows that it's not happening today. Yes, sir.
Senator, I'd like to tell you where the North begins.
Oh.
Highway 51, just south of Portage, there is a big billboard, and it says on it, Portage, where the North begins.
Should he play the song?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Can you can
Yeah.
try it? Yep.
I'll sit down to the strains of The Great Divide by Judd Caswell, which was entered into the inaugural, we hope this another one coming soon, the inaugural songwriting contest for Braver Angels.
Are you in it?
Oh,
Yeah, right.
oh, wait, this is a different video. Sorry, this is my band. And we're not playing anything about Braver Angels. This is just pure raw advertisement. It was the other video that I sent you in the email that I'm talking about.
I think he had it on earlier.
Yeah.
You sent me this in the email?
In an email, just before I sent you the slides to share. We had over 250 entries into this songwriting contest. And this one, I think y'all will like.
You never heard a word of anger pass between that husband and his wife. People kinda wonder why they bother to even take the time to put on coats and go out to the schoolhouse on a Tuesday night to cancel out their votes. It used to be. There was a time you could agree to disagree. It was before the slide to the great divide. Every word I hear about my country feels like gasoline poured on a flame. Seems like everybody's picking sides and picking fights and calling names. Everywhere I look, I see the anger. Every conversation fills with trolls. Everybody knows the party lines. We wave our signs, we play our roles. It used to be this land of us and them was made for you and me. Guess that died, the great divide. Yes, I know you didn't start this fight, and I've heard the other side is more to blame. And I know that there's wrong and right, and we can't afford to lose this game. We're all losing just the same. So we get kinda stupid when we're angry. It's easier to hurt a hurricane. Play us like a sucker on the line each time we rise to click the bait. Oh, but there's a simple hearted solution, older than the oldest grudge you've nursed. Someone's gonna have to lay their sword down, but someone's gonna have to do it first. And it seems to me we've forgotten who's a friend or enemy. You'll recall that a house divided surely is gonna fall for spite, fall for pride, to the great divide. Anna was a registered Republican, Pappy was a Democrat for life.
Great message. Abe has moment of reflection.
I don't know if
Yeah, hallelujah. Well, I like history, and a few weeks ago, I ran onto a little bit of history that I didn't know anything about. So I'm going to share it with you. It's about Henry Ford, and you all know that Henry Ford was a fellow that basically his ideas and innovations led to the efficient, rather lower cost, rapid mass production of automobiles, and he remade the auto industry. But I didn't, and his first car, I didn't know this, his first car, the successful one, was the Model T. And it required about 100 board feet of lumber to build, each one of them. Running boards, floorboards, the frame, dashboard, spokes on wheels, etc. I didn't know that Henry Ford was also a bit of an outdoorsman, and he liked to camp. And when he was successful, he would organize camping trips and take along his, as guests, his important friends like Thomas Edison. And they were pretty luxurious camping trips. On one of them in 1919, his guests included Harvey Firestone, a important naturalist of that time by the name of Burroughs, and he invited along a real estate agent who happened to be also a Ford dealer and was married to Henry Ford's cousin, and he was one of his cousins he was most fond of. And on this trip, they got to visiting about where they might find a dependable supply of lumber for Ford's cars. Well, shortly after, the real estate agent located 313,000 acres of timberland near Iron Mountain, Michigan. And Ford bought it. And he put in lumber mills and woodworking shops, and that's where he was actually producing the parts that were being shipped into Detroit for assembly into Model Ts. And in the early 20s, he was producing by then hundreds of thousands of Model Ts each year, and that resulted in a heck of a lot of sawdust and scrap lumber. And I guess Henry Ford was kind of a penny pincher too, and he hated to see all that sawdust and wood scraps rotting on the ground. So he contacted a chemist who happened to be from Oregon. And the chemist suggested, let's mix the sawdust and ground up wood scraps with some cornstarch and a little bit of tar and press it together into lumps and char it in a kiln. And the stuff burned pretty well and kept a good hot campfire. So Henry Ford formed the Ford Charcoal Company, located right next to the operations in northern Michigan, and producing charcoal and distributed charcoal at Ford dealerships, as well as other places. And many Model Ts and later models left the showroom with a bag of Ford charcoal. And so you could go camping and had all the dry firewood you want. You didn't have to go look for dry firewood. So Henry Ford not only contributed to the automobile industry, but he actually helped develop the backyard grilling industry as well. Well, Henry Ford passed, and in 1951, the board of directors of the Ford Motor Company decided to sell the charcoal company. So they sold it. And the new owner, the new owners searched around for a name. So they decided, we'll name it after the real estate agent who discovered the 300,000 acres. The guy's name was E.G. Rockford. So what happened? Rockford Charcoal Company is today the leading charcoal manufacturer in the United States, and you see the brand everywhere. So what's the moral of all this stuff? I guess it means you should try to do something that you've never done before once in a while.
Thanks, Abe. Not a lot of business. Any announcements? Let's start there. Not a lot of announcements either. Let me get the count here real quick. I have us at 19 in person, 1 guest, our speaker, and at least 4 Zoom members and 4 Zoom guests. So welcome Madison West guests on Zoom. Dick has something to
I
say.
just have one announcement. So last week, Kevin and I participated in saying football picks. So he's behind me because he sees no picks. And so he said, I said, can you join the rally and win the picks with the Super Bowl? And he said, all I have to do is beat you. Kevin picked the Rams, I picked Cincinnati. He beat me.
Yeah. It was an interesting game. Announcements from the president here. Next week is our board meeting, which is after the regular meeting. So everybody's invited to stay around. We'll be short a couple of board members, but we have a couple of things to talk about. One is the contract with Cranberry Catering is coming due in April. So we want to start that discussion. So if you have opinions, you can share them with myself or Leonard or Jim or Corky or Richard, all board members, Dick. If you have some positive or negative about continuing our meetings here at Cranberry Catering, we need to get those discussions going. The other thing is just watch for Miracle League announcements. There is, Mike Ely shared their request. They're looking to put in lights at the field, so they're raising funds for that. Bill has not asked us for any money. I think he appreciates our donation last year, obviously, to get them going, but the volunteering is where I think Bill really could use our help. And I know I'm gonna volunteer. Jim?
Yeah, Kevin, on that regard, did I see something that if we as members donated toward that, the Kiwanis Foundation would match it, or was that my imagination?
Where's Abe? I don't think they've talked about that.
Lights?
On the lights for Miracle
So
League.
if I'm
No.
making a donation, I want to know if I should do it through the club or write the bill.
What does the foundation think about that?
I would suppose if you want to, either way, it's a charitable contribution, yeah.
Excuse me?
Either way, it's a charitable contribution.
Yeah, right. No, it's a matter of.
But we could pool our individual
We wanted
contributions.
to leverage the club funds. I just didn't know.
Yeah, no, that has not been discussed. That's a good point. We can have the foundation board talk about that idea. So we'll get back.
So really, it's a decision of the club. The foundation board just responds to the club.
Okay.
Richard, another board item.
Yes, sir.
Matching contributions, considering that
I'll hold
for,
off on contribution till I
Yeah.
know whether I should do it through the club or directly.
right. So that's one issue. Consider volunteering. I mean, Jim and I and Richard and Tom Smith and Eileen did a little volunteering, and she's going to continue that. So we always need volunteers as they grow in number of players, and they're looking to grow about 50% next year, or this year, I guess. So they'll need more volunteers. Trying to think what else I had. Can't think of anything, but next week we have a talk about the economy. It's a professor from Clemson University, I assume is zooming in. So actually, do you all know about the UW Foundation talks that are ongoing? Wednesday's a talk about the economy. Tomorrow night. Okay, I just signed up for it. So very interesting talks I do both the foundation talks with Ken Knetter, is that his name? And then I also do the Discovery Center talks, Wisconsin Institute for Discovery, which are mostly science talks, but they're really all accessible on Zoom or YouTube. So really good talks. You can talk to me if you want to get on the mailing lists. 28th, Alzheimer and Dementia Alliance of Wisconsin. Something we all, as we age, should be aware of, some of the recent work and findings in the research about Alzheimer's. And then March 7th, we have the FFA Awards here with limited, somewhat limited guests, right?
Each club is limited, each chapter to 5 total attendance.
Okay, so we'll have more tables set up and everything. We've talked with Jim about that. Madison Area Food Pantry on the 14th, and I don't have the 21st yet, but Jim says he has somebody and he can't remember who our talk is. So a lot of great talks, as was today. So unless there's anything else, we can thank Cameron again and check out braverangels.org. And very interesting topic. And I have a minute yet, right? 1 minute. I was born up on the Iron Range in Minnesota, where the boundary waters were formed after I was born, but I spent a lot of canoe trips up in the boundary waters. There's this huge controversy about mining versus preservation. And it's the same type of, it's those guys wanting to destroy the environment by mining, and then many citizens saying we need the economy, we need the economic boost of mining, and the sides are not talking to each other. So there's so many issues where this Braver Angels concept of just respecting the other side, maybe we can reach some compromises. So very much appreciate the message. And I didn't put out the bell today. I forgot to do that. So I can't ring the bell. Consider the bell rung, and see you next week.